Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship.
They actually did call me a week in advance and did tell me not to throw the event. And I simply replied, I am practicing my charter rights. And again, it is very important that we practice these rights because if we don't practice them, they're just going to gobble them up, right? Like, it's just very difficult. I stand for peace and I stand for freedom, and I'm going to do what it takes, and I'm not going to back down to this tyrannical government, to these unlawful laws. I'm not going to back down.
David Menzies for Rebel News here in Hamilton, Ontario, and I'm with Anthony Gagliardi. He is the head of the Hamilton chapter of Hugs Over Masks. And, a week ago, Anthony was part of a political demonstration. The Hugs Over Masks group had a march to here, Hamilton Police Headquarters. And wow, did Anthony ever get a ticket for the ages? Just will you hear this story, folks. So, Anthony, as I alluded to in the introduction, on Sunday, November the 8th, you had a rally and then you had a march through the streets of Hamilton that ended right here at Hamilton Police Headquarters. And then what happened?
Then I was received a summons 4 days later. So I came to the police headquarters. They called me 4 times. They called me also a week prior to the event saying, don't go, don't do it, we're going to fine you, whatever. I just informed the officer that I was practicing Section 2C of my charter rights. He just kind of was like, yeah, I'm just doing my job, which I understand, they got a job to do. So I ended up holding the rally on November 8th. It was a big success. We did end up doing a march down here to the police station, just to know that they have our support as much as we need them. They need us, right? So in return, they gave me a summons to court. It wasn't even a fine. It was a summons. And it just reads, failure to comply with continued Section 7.02 order as per Ontario Regulation 364/20, the Reopen Ontario Act, Section 10.1, bracket 1.
Now, Anthony, what does that mean in terms of a dollar amount fine that you stand to receive?
Apparently it's $10,000, but nothing's been confirmed. It's just a summons. There's not even a dollar amount. So I'm waiting to hear, I guess, what I'm up against on February 22nd at the courthouse.
That's your first court date. And when you say $10,000, so this is one of those tickets that I believe the minimum is $10,000, but the maximum could go all the way up to $100,000. Is that correct?
I'm not 100% sure on that, but it could be correct. I would have to look into it a little bit more.
Now, let's go back a second. You mentioned that the police phoned you, I think it was 4 times, saying, please don't do this. To my knowledge, you might be the first one to have received that. I know the Toronto crew that's been protesting at Queen's Park and Yonge Dundas Square, they haven't received that ticket. Any thoughts? Were you surprised by this? Because it seemed that, from everyone from local mayors to the premier himself, it was don't do this or you'll be fined. But lo and behold, last week you were fined.
I think it's all just propaganda. They're trying to scare people, right? So for being the organizer of the event, that's fine. I mean, I got my legal representation that will take care of everything. I'm not too worried about that.
I'm curious though, for those people that are listening to your story and they're saying, wow, the police kind of did him a service. They called him 4 times. They said, do not do this. You still went out and did it. How would you respond to those who say you're perhaps the author of your own misfortune?
I'm just practicing my rights, right? That's all I'm doing. I'm not doing anything unlawful or illegal, right? So for them to even come out to me and say, hey, you're subject to this fine or you have to appear in court on this date, I mean, it's total bogus to me.
Well, Anthony, doing some armchair quarterbacking, if you knew a week ago that doing this, march, this rally, would result in a fine ranging from $10,000 to $100,000, would you have sit it out, or would you still say, nope, the principle here is important enough for me to exercise my charter of rights even with a large penalty?
They actually did call me a week in advance and did tell me not to throw the event. And I simply replied, I am practicing my charter rights. And again, it is very important that we practice these rights because if we don't practice them, they're just going to gobble them up, right? Like, it's just very difficult. I stand for peace and I stand for freedom, and I'm going to do what it takes, and I'm not going to back down to this tyrannical government, to these unlawful laws. I'm not going to back down.
And certainly, I mean, a valid point, I think, regardless of where one sits on this issue of these gatherings, it's the way in which the authorities are cherry picking who to go after. For example, we've had the rally that you're involved with and others like it, anti-lockdown marches, if you want to call it that, being condemned. Yet the same people condemning those marches, I'm talking about members of city councils, will show up to, say, a Black Lives Matter rally and even speak at one. So do you see a double standard here when it comes to the cause in question?
Absolutely. It's very baffling. I mean, I ask myself this question, why is it okay Black Lives Matter to happen and it's not okay for us to happen?
Well, I mean, it's either a double standard or perhaps this Wuhan virus is so super intelligent it can differentiate a anti-lockdown march versus a march for racial justice, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely does. Again, if Black Lives Matter can do their thing, why can't we do our thing, right? Like, well, if they can have their rallies, but we can't have ours, yeah, it's definitely a double standard.
No, and of course I was being facetious. Yeah, if this is a virus, it doesn't discriminate against anyone or anything, in theory, that is. So Anthony, I don't know your financial situation, but if you're facing a 5 or even 6-figure fine, is this something that's debilitating for you?
Absolutely it is. I mean, I only received the CERB or the CERB or whatever it is now, right? So, I mean, that's not much money. That's probably about $800 every 2 weeks. I mean, that's barely enough to survive, really. Right? So I'd be devastated. I'd be done. Like, I'd lose everything.
So I guess the next step in your story, it is, I believe, someday in February, you have your first court appearance. I don't know if that'll be the actual trial, but your first court appearance is in Hamilton on what day?
February 22nd, and I want to invite everybody down to that as well at 1:30 p.m. at 50 Main Street East here in Hamilton.
All I have to say is I guess I'll be back here in the Hammer on February 22nd, thanks for correcting me, and we'll see how that turns out. So any last words when it comes to getting zapped with that ticket from a week ago?
I just wanted to tell everybody to stay strong out there. You know, the fight's not over. We definitely have not won, and I still want to invite everybody out to our weekly rally here at Hamilton City Hall. Every week, every Sunday at 12 o'clock. We'll be here. We won't back down.
You're not worried about getting a second fine then?
No, I'm not worried about getting a second fine because I know that this is unconstitutional. Yeah, we're going to be there with or without anything. It doesn't matter. Come and find me again. It doesn't matter to me.
All right. Well, Anthony, good luck on your future protests and good luck at your court appearance in February.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Hey, folks, if you're able to, please go to journalistdefensefund.com and make a donation. Sometimes we have lawyers to pay. Sometimes we have bodyguards we must hire. But it's worth it when it comes to bringing you the other side of the story.